There are many barriers for athletes to overcome to reach an elite status. The question is, are these barriers higher for disabled athletes, and is this in turn distorting the representation of the UK's population in parasport? Funding is frequently in the news, but little is known about the struggles para-athletes face. This could be for equipment, coaches and support staff, or travel costs. For London 2012, the GB Olympic team received over £264 million, compared to the £29 million received for the Paralympic team.
And they don't get anywhere near the funding. You know, the funding that the Olympians received pre, during and after, is the Paralympians get nothing of that. Nothing at all. They're not even on the same playing field, and never will be. It's very sad. It is. And that's why we're here to help them, really. You'll need an expensive chair maybe for wheelchair or rugby, and then archery, you might not need much equipment at all, but you might need more grant to go to different events all the time.
Before you start, you have to spend money, really. So if you're going to take up a sport, you have to commit to it. It's not like able-bodied sport where you can just try it, see if you like it.
UK Sport were asked to comment on the difference between funding levels, but they declined. Winter parasports are classed as a niche within a niche, so funding has always been harder to obtain.
It costs a lot more if you've got a disability. In skiing this is that you have to go away, and sometimes you might have to bring someone with you to carry all your equipment, have a buddy type thing, so you're paying quite a lot of money out extra compared to an able-bodied person. It's £1,000 a week, we believe, for somebody to be able to be in the British disabled ski team. And a visually impaired person has to pay for their guide as well, so they're paying twice.
At the 2014 Sochi Winter Paralympics, where Kelly Gallagher and Charlotte Evans won Britain's first gold medal on snow, the British disabled ski team won a total of 5 medals, and these are already having a positive impact.
We've gone from a sort of £40,000 a year funding to about £250,000 a year funding because of those medals. It does mean that instead of just employing a coach, which is all we could afford before, we can now employ a performance director, physios, psychologists, more specific coaches.
2012 saw the return of some intellectually disabled events. ID events had been suspended following the 2000 Summer Paralympics in Sydney, after the Spanish basketball team was stripped of their gold medals when it was found that only 2 of their 12 team members actually suffered from any intellectual disability. A new sports intelligence test has been introduced, but this has complicated the route for some athletes further. Bocce is a form of bowls for athletes with cerebral palsy. In the interests of fairness, the classification rules have been recently adapted, and they are becoming a barrier for some.
One of the big problems with disability sport is the classification system. It's such a grey area that a lot of good athletes and stuff get cut out of sport completely. I was doing alright in it, spent quite a bit of money on equipment and all that sort of stuff, and then they told me that I was too able to do it, so I got declassified, and now I can't compete competitively in the sport.
The classification process is steadily improving, trying to clean it up and, remove all the inaccuracies that there were.
The national census is showing that Great Britain is becoming a more ethnically diverse country. When you look at the 2011 results and compare them to Team GB for London, the Olympic team represents the black and ethnic minorities well. However, when you compare it to the Paralympic team, it's a very different story.
I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination on ethnic communities. What I would say is that we've undertaken equality evaluations and research within Disability Sport Wales, and we've identified that BME is an area that we want to invest more time into, identifying how we can connect more closely with that particular community.
At grassroots levels across the country, there are a wide variety of ethnicities taking part. Bradford has one of the highest ethnic minority populations in the country.
We've got a real mixture in our clubs, we've got a real mixture of all different backgrounds, so that works. And actually, I find that they don't seem to have any cultural boundaries, they just really get on really well together, it's really good.
So if they're competing at that level, why are they not taking the next step up?
I think it's the mindset of the families. as sport in ethnic minorities is not considered a genuine career choice. When it comes to ethnic minorities, parents tend to be overprotective and don't really expose their children to sport.
We know that there are some traits around ethnic communities where they tend to operate as very robust, strong communities. Maybe sometimes those communities look outwards, but sometimes they are inward looking. So I think part of our strategy at the moment is trying to find the right level of community leader.
Coming from this sort of area, I must admit, we do have issues where, say, guys that are from, say, a Muslim background won't be able to attend events because, say, they've got mosque and things like that. So, I mean, that could be one reason. From an actual skill level, there's no reason, because I find that they're all on an equal par.
There are certain ethnic groups which are just not engaged with sport. I wouldn't be surprised if you've got all those kind of other factors feeding into that, of shame, family prestige and stuff. And in certain cultures that's very important. So disability is something to be hidden away rather than allowed to, flourish.
With all these barriers, it is clear to see that more still needs to be done. Barriers come in many forms, and while a small number make it to the top, there are still many who do not know how to overcome them, which is distorting how Great Britain is represented.